So getting into my re-review of Overlord Volume 2, I really love rereading these volumes, and a lot of the reasons why is because every time you reread something, there's always little things that you've missed from the previous times that you've read them, and there's always little things that you kind of look at and you go, okay, and then you kind of have a different perspective. And every time that I've reread these volumes, and I think I've done a multitude of different videos going over each different sort of time that I've gone over them and read them and reviewed them, I've always had different feelings, and I don't know if that's going to be a continuous thing, because I don't know if I would ever do another re-review of this, but I really was looking forward to re-reviewing or rereading, particularly, of course, Volume 2, and there's definitely some things that I kind of looked at it and I was just kind of like, it made me wonder. And the first thing, of course, which I've talked about in a previous video was, of course, to do with Nabe and AINZ'S, and was Nabe the right choice for AINZ'S to become an adventurer party to build up his reputation, to try and find his other guild members? And then of course there's a whole thing about looking for other Yggdrasil players as well, but that's kind of a little bit of a side component to it. And as much as I do feel like Nabe is a little bit difficult at times, I do feel like she's probably is the best option, especially when you look at, say, like for example, you could have taken Albedo, but her importance in doing other tasks is more important than you could have maybe taken Shaltir, but Shaltir is way too important doing other stuff. And then of course you've got other characters like Sebes, Solution, could have taken Yuri Alpha. There's a bunch that you could have switched out, but I feel like Nabe probably fit the best role. The only issue with Nabe is that, and this is something that happens throughout the volume, is that she opens her mouth and doesn't think before she speaks, because she gets too passionate, especially when she gets all worked up about, of course, Albedo and the relationship between AINZ'S, and then accidentally, lets it slip, and that leads to, of course, the alchemist or the herbalist finding out or working out who he is, and then basically saying thank you for saving my village and the girl that I'm in love with. But of course the good part from that is he decides, hey, I'm not going to actually tell anyone who you are. So that's one positive aspect from that. But that being said, I just feel like Nabe really does have a bit of, as they call it, foot and mouth disease, where I just feel like she really needs to just think before she speaks. And even after AINZ'S says, hey, do this, she goes out of her way almost to just not do it. Especially when he's just like, don't add the sun in it, and it just starts sort of stuttering. It's like, fine. It just feels like, even though you give her direct order, she has a tendency to just not follow it through, because of the whole concept of, but you've got to add this whole omnipotent respect. And it's like AINZ'S is trying to say, we're undercover here, we're trying to get information, which I think is very smart. I think AINZ'S trying to build up a reputation, trying to find out information, trying to understand the lay of the land, the economy, the politics, how things work, and the power scaling and everything is very smart. That being said, him giving out a potion which well exceeds, let's just say, the value of other stuff out there, I feel like that's probably the first thing I would have done personally. If I was in that world, I would have looked at, yes, what are the different scales of power when it comes to monsters, humans, heroes, politics and all that, but of course also would have looked at what other items are out there, whether it's one-time use when it comes to potions or enchantments, or different herbs, materials, ores, or equipment in general, trying to find out where the scaling is there, and then do a comparison to what you possess in your reservoir or your backlog, of course, at Nazarick, and then also looking at what is out there in the world. That way you don't accidentally inject something that might stir up a bit of a rippling effect and draw unwanted attention. At least that's what I would have done personally if I was in there. But again, you never know. It's just kind of that theory kind of mindset. But I do think it adds for some interesting moments as well, because without it, things wouldn't have played out in the way it did. And you've also got to be happy with the fact that the pub fight did happen, with, of course, the individuals trying to test AINZ'S, and then that fight happening the way he flipped everyone around, because without the actual potion being broken, none of the events would have played out in the way they did. It's also just funny the fact that these particular adventurers, as roughed up as they are, they were trying to test the AINZ'S because they thought he was just a bit of an upstart, low rank, heaps of fancy material on him, and so they're just assuming, hey, he's just a rich boy, rich family, actually doesn't know what he's doing. And so they give him a bit of a test, he does what he does, and then events play out the way they do. Without that event playing out, none of the things would have led to the way they ended up being. There would have been no escort, there would have been no Hamski. AINZ'S wouldn't have gone out of his way to try and resolve the issue in the way he did with the fight at the end, and so certain things would have played out very differently. Again, the fight at the end would have happened, but it would have happened very differently, and I feel like there would have been a bit of a different outcome overall. I liked the fact that it played out the way it did. It's just one big misunderstanding leading into one event after another, like a rippling effect. And of course, with the potion being given out and then them trying to investigate how that a potion or where it came from and all the other nitty-gritty stuff to do in it. I do love the way they're like the blood of the gods kind of thing as well, because of the fact that their potions are of a different color because of the process and the way they're done in the game. It's all red, and so it's kind of seen as this mystical thing. The other thing though too is the fact that when AINZ'S is planning to join with another party to do some kill quests or killing stuff to build up some money, it's interesting when he gets asked to do the escort mission and AINZ'S is just like, oh no, I've already been acquired, you can ask me after. And they're like, oh no, this is a personal request. And I like the respect and almost the chivalryness AINZ'S does there, where he's like, well no, I was asked to do this first, I'm not going to abandon you. I like that. I like the way AINZ'S goes about that. Though to be honest, Nabe almost chopping someone's head off by accident, again, falls back to my previous point. Nabe doesn't think before it acts, or while she acts. So sometimes I feel like Nabe needs to be put on a bit of a leash and just yank it back and be like, no, don't attack them, don't bite, they're not here to hurt you. And not that they could anyway, and that's another thing, like, you can clearly tell none of them are going to be able to ever hurt them, so why get so worked up? I know AINZ'S is still keeping very cautious, but I just feel like Nabe reflexes are a little bit over the top. And that again leads into the actual escort itself. And I thought what was interesting was the reminiscing for AINZ'S. AINZ'S reminiscing on the past. And I like that because it kind of shows how much he misses his friends, though him getting worked up was a little bit over the top. I feel like he could have, toned that down a little bit, but I feel like he really does miss his friends, and it really falls back into the point of he really enjoyed playing the game with his friends, and the fact that they ended up quitting in the way they did, I do feel like was a bit of a kick in the teeth for him, and I feel like he did feel a little bit betrayed, which is why I just feel sorry for him, and I wonder if he should have gone about maybe acquiring some new guild members, trying to fill some of the slots. And I feel like if I was in that guild with AINZ'S and I had to go away for a period of time, whether it was due to work or health reasons, I would have just said straight up, yeah, just recruit some new friends, make new friends, add them in, and maybe loosen the requirements a little bit, because the requirements to join that guild were pretty insane. Maybe loosen them up a little bit so that AINZ'S could find some new party members to work with, to build stuff and do stuff with. But that being said, I feel like there's this big attachment to the friends group that they made, which is understandable. I mean, I've been playing MMOs for a long time, and that friends group that you always build has a lot of... It has that memories kind of thing. I still remember a lot of the friends that I used to play with with some of the raids that I did back in World of Warcraft, with Vanilla, Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, all the way through until more recent when I quit. Those memories will always stay with me, and sometimes, you wish you could go back to them, but I still believe that AINZ'S should have tried to make new memories rather than trying to latch onto the past, which I think is a bit of an unhealthy mindset. And that also falls into another part of AINZ'S changing the settings for Albedo, which he feels guilty about, and there is the question of, would have Albedo's master mind? And honestly, I feel like if I was that individual or someone in the guild and AINZ'S did change the settings, I wouldn't have been so bothered by it, because if I had quit the game, then I would have been like, well, you're the one running it, it's your show, I've left. As much as I can come back at any time and pop in and say hi, it kind of falls back to that previous point. Let AINZ'S do what he needs to do. Find new guild members, find new friends, change things as it needs to be to best suit his needs. I mean, he's the one still keeping it up and running. He should be allowed to change things as he sees fit. So, I mean, changing something as silly as you know, making Albedo madly in love, I feel like it would have probably changed the madly in love Riv just passionately in love, because I feel like the madly in love maybe overdid it for her, maybe made the personality traits a little bit more insane. Which again, it is a question that I would love to throw to other people. Do you think AINZ'S was in the right changing the settings, or would have you been upset if you made that character in that guild and then someone else changed the settings after you quit? If you were still playing the game, then it's a different thing, and that's the thing. If you're playing the game with them and then they change the setting, I can understand maybe being a little bit ticked off. But if you've quit the game, you've moved on, and then AINZ'S changes the settings, I don't really see where anyone would have a right to complain. You've quit the game, you've relinquished your right to really sit there and complain, unless you come back and then we're like, but even then it's like, well, you did quit. And even then, the setting is harmless in itself. It's not like AINZ'S has done really weird stuff and deliberately gone against anything that the actual other creators wished. It's just something as silly as making one character kind of love you as like a weird fantasy. So I personally don't really see the issue. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. So with the reminiscing, them actually making it to Khan Village, and then you've got the Goblin troops. That's the thing that I really love, is the fact that after everything that happened to that village, they put the wall up, she summons the goblins, or at least some of them, and that allowed her to protect the village. And it's just kind of cool, the rippling effect from Volume 1 into Volume 2, and you see how certain events have played out and changed. I just think it's really cool. And I like the goblins themselves. They just look really cool. They add a lot of flavor to the actual story. And then seeing how the village is recuperating, how they're training, and AINZ'S respect for that, I think that's pretty cool. Even though Nable's just kind of like, oh, they're so weak and pathetic. It's like, look at them adapt though. They're not wallowing in despair. They're not running away. They're not trying to go to the city somewhere more secure or safe. No, they've fortified their walls. They've got the goblin little troop army, or little bandwagon of musketeers, and they're training. They're building their own ability to defend themselves, which I think is something to be commendable about. And then, of course, you've got the whole Wise King of the North. I love the Wise King of the North. I love Hamsky. Hamsky is by far one of my favorite characters, because of the fact that Hamsky is like that perfect scenario of you playing an MMO, you going out of your way to acquire a ridiculous reputation, a ridiculous currency, doing a weird quest line, and then you get this really weird looking mount, and it doesn't really suit the character that you're playing or the armor set and everything, but you love the mount anyway because it's like a flexing, right? It's like, hey, look at this weird thing that I've got, and everyone's just like, oh my god, that's so amazing, it's so rare. That's how I feel with Hamsky, even though Hamsky, yeah, it's just a giant hamster. I love Hamsky. It's just adorable, sweet. I love the voice acting done for the subbed and the dubbed, reflecting on the anime itself. I just love how Hamsky has been done overall. Perfect. Love Hamsky. Can never complain. And then, of course, you go from that point to, of course, the kidnapping. The kidnapping isn't, you know, the big grand thing that I really care about. The real thing that I really cared about is the actual fight itself. Clementine versus AINZ'S, and then of course Dal versus Nabe, and just how those fights play out. Because one thing that I've always loved, and this reflects on Volume 1 as well, is those moments of despair when you think the opponent has you down, you know, you're in the dumps, they're gonna win, they've got this arrogantness about them, they think they are the strongest, they think they're the best, and they think they've got one above you. And then it's the realization, the satisfaction of just watching their face go from ignorance, arrogantness, glee, and then just turns into despair and panic and fear. And it's just so funny, because seeing them think that they've got this in the bag and that they're going to beat AINZ'S, particularly Clementine, and mocking him as well because of the whole martial arts, and him going, well, you know, I didn't really know anything about martial arts and all that. And she's just like, well, how are you even a warrior? How do you even survive? You've got to know these things to be a warrior. Like, you're terrible. And then realizing, oh, he was a magic caster the entire time, and then that satisfactional end, absolutely love it. And the fact that Clementine's body of course, just completely crushed in the way it does. The anime does it very well as well. And then, of course, you got Dao versus Nabe, and the way Nabe does it in a very mocking manner. It's much more belittling, but then that's kind of Nabe's kind of mindset is everyone's insects. And then, of course, you got Hamsky as well, rushing around, trying to help, but at the same time being scared and then being carried. I just love it. I love how all those events played out because it just adds to those fun moments where you can just sit there and smile and just enjoy AINZ'S completely dominate. Again, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you like about the 4 episodes for the anime, or particularly reading volume 2? Because reading it, it's just still really fun, and just kind of reflecting on some of the things that play out. It's just interesting. So again, I'd love to know your thoughts, but of course, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more anime content, check out the playlist for more Overlord content, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.